Ladies and gentlemen of the crypto space, we're live on Wednesday, July 10th at 11:31 a.m. So this is the captain's couch, or some thought that's in my head resulting from social media conversation. So I was mentioning earlier in response to someone else's rather well put together piece regarding valuations of crypto protocols versus companies. Crypto protocols are companies. There is no difference. So everything that carries over from meat space being the two primary categorizations of types of instruments being growth stock, dividend absent, valuation multiples based on projections of revenue, and then dividend bearing instruments, stocks, companies. And this is an age old conversation. And I just want to bring everyone to Captain's Couch for another 5 minutes because it always comes back, and people need to be reminded that the majority are wrong, the majority fail, the majority lose everything they have because they don't do things differently. And my mama would say, everybody needs a little bit of Jesus right about now. So I would say everyone needs a little bit of rationality right about now. And what kind of rationality is that? A different story about what the heck a dividend company, a dividend offering company is. So let's do the inverse first. So buybacks. So a company issues stock. They capitalize. They raise capital. They receive investment by dumping stock on the general public. That's what it is. They're dumping shit, worthless shit on you. You're buying it, and that buying of it gives it its value because the market sets price. So now the shit that they dumped on you, they generate money with their business and they buy it back, elevating the price of the shit that they dumped on you. And folks would argue that that is a tax-friendly way of the company distributing value to you. Now, mechanically, that is the case, but that's just because folks have not broadened their financial perspective to understand how the system works and what the system allows us to do. If you're running your money through, you're running your finances through personal taxes, you're basically not, certainly not optimizing the way you should be doing things. There's a reason why a Roth IRA and a traditional IRA exist. At minimum, a self-directed IRA account is the appropriate way to encapsulate uh, assets for capital management purposes. I think a lot of folks often say, pay the taxes, you know, do the capital gains, the trading, watch the number go up, and pay the taxes. I have come to realize that perfectly consistent with my methodology and looking at cash flow, no. Optimize everything, considering the structures that are offered to us, are made available to us by the very rules that are governing us. So we obviously have to read the rules. So the quick response to my tweet earlier, and this is everyone, this always happens every time I talk about, unless the company pays you, it's a stupid company, it's a worthless company. You know, fuck you, pay me. That's all that matters. So there's always a response about share buybacks being tax friendly and the price goes up, the value of the stock goes up. And I understand the mechanics of that. I just don't see how and why anyone would settle for running their capital through personal taxation methodology. And that's the only reason a buyback makes sense. So, um, that being said, I know it's not easy. What does that mean? Doesn't mean you have to spend money. Nowadays, everything has changed. So, anything that a person wants to get done can be done. And it needs to be pursued. And that doesn't mean going to a public library anymore, ever since Google. 08, 09, everything changed after that. And now it's no longer that. Now it's all AI. So go on your Claude, go on your ChatGPT, and ask questions. So you're not going to make progress with anything you do financially unless you ask questions. And the best place to ask questions to is the system, the software, computer intelligence, because it's basically free. You don't even have to pay. Use the free version. And then when you're like, oh my God, this changes everything, use the paid version. Because it's a no-brainer. So, cash flow, dividends make sense over share buybacks for a couple of reasons. One, a share buyback is, as I initially described, a company dumped their shit on you to raise capital, to suck the money out of your pocket so they could do business. And meanwhile, they suck at business, all of them. Why? You could probably find 10, 15, 20% of the workforce being a waste of capex. Yes, human beings being a waste of capex, inefficiency. Somewhere in the stack of humans. The biggest problem with human resources is the humans. Now, I know that comes off a certain way, and I'm a humanitarian, and I do what I can, and I've done what I can over the years. But I'm also a person that understands a balance sheet, understands efficiency, understands waste, and look at what Elon Musk did with Twitter. He laid off 3/4 of the workforce. The system works just fine. So I'm not a fan of why they raise so much capital, and I'm not a fan of executive bonuses. I'm not a fan of executive pay, not even the bonuses. It's all complicated bullshit. A flat corporate structure makes the most sense. And the most efficient company possible is exactly what we invest in and why we invest in these crypto protocols. Because there's no people, there's no human resources. These protocols literally solve the problem with human resources. Get rid of the people. And obviously that doesn't make sense for many still very useful jobs, but it certainly makes sense for fintech. What do I need someone to be involved in the borrowing of money process? I need collateral, I borrow money. That's software. So, it just grosses me out, the whole notion of a traditional corporation. That's why I can't invest in them anymore the way I historically did. So buybacks just don't fit into anything I see as trying to do better. It's somewhat of a capitulation, Oh, that's the way it works. Oh, I'm going to look at it through a different lens. No, that's the acceptance lens that the corporations are going to dump on you to raise capital. That's the, oh, I finally realized how the system works and why NVIDIA is going up in price. So, what I see, no matter what, is just my incessant need to be rational. So what does it mean if the stock is going up in price? That means you have to sell stock. That means you have to sell coins. And I don't like that. So in software engineering, I usually operate with what I call a smell. If something is too complicated, one, stop, make it simple. Two, you get a smell. And this is an innate instinct when you have experience, professional experience. Something smells about that, having to sell stock. So you invest in a company because you want to invest. I am giving a company money so they could do something with it and give me money back. I don't want to sell my damn stock. And this is very consistent with, like, I don't know, a hodl. But I don't hodl. I own. So what's the difference? There's a big difference. Hodling is typically associated with Bitcoin conversation. So we have a much more robust story we tell nowadays, and we encapsulate Bitcoin in it. So the point is, I don't hodl, I own. I want cash flow. I don't want to see number go up. I don't want to sell my shit. I want to. What are we as humans if we don't own things? We are what we own. That's it. Otherwise, we're just ourselves. So the only thing that we are other than ourselves is the things we've chosen to own. And the things we create, our careers, our families, the things we produce, but it's the things we choose to own. So if you're buying some shit just to sell it because another 10,000 dumbasses bought it after you, you never owned it. You rented it. So that's just the base psychology of why I don't appreciate and I don't subscribe to um, that way of looking at capital management. So they traditionally call it dividends, and then that's applicable to crypto. It's applicable to these businesses, except the cash flow comes from very different mechanisms. In good part from a collapsed human resources department. And that's crazy. So there's going to be a personal tax implication for a dividend, whether it's traditional finance or crypto. So the solution there is don't personally own it, encapsulate it, because there's different rules. That's how you cure the buybacks. You don't pay taxes on the buybacks because you only pay taxes when you sell it. I don't want to sell it. So stop owning shit personally. There's thousands and thousands of pages of rules that you can access with the click of a button from ChatGPT. Just have endless conversations. What types of corporations are there? Do I really have? This is like that whole "watch me Google this for you" thing. All right, look. Here's your list of corporations. For an S corp, what is a tax optimized strategy to process? Um, fuck it. Dividend receipts. Okay, so this is complicated. So because it's corporate and it's corporate rules. So, but ask the questions. What is another corporate structure that has comparable or better tax optimization potential to handle dividend receipts. I mean, come on, guys. Just like literally 3 questions in. All right, is it talking about LLCs and S corp? Okay. So so here's your. This is the burden of the system. The rules of corporations, S corps are pass through, and you have corporate taxes, and this is an interesting workaround, employment taxes. But I'm not going to break down corporate taxes. I mean, obviously, I'm coming from the trust perspective, which is a whole nother level of rules and regulations. Oh, that's an interesting one. Self-employment tax optimization. Overall tax liabilities compared to the self-employment tax on all earnings in the sole proprietorship. I guess my whole point is ask questions and don't stop asking questions until you find reasonable solutions. I think I wouldn't necessarily move to Puerto Rico if I had found this channel in 2023. My man. Puerto Rico has its pitfalls as well because it has its rules and regulations that are complicated to follow. What's a good question? Let me help you guys ask questions. So, in the end, I guess the reason I'm talking about this at the moment is because I have my trust structure, and it's like hindsight is 2020. So in hindsight, now that I have this remarkably optimized and efficient structure, it's like, how can I tell the story of how the hell I got to where I am? I mean, you don't just crank out 24 pages of pretty much remarkably organized business structure in 5 minutes. This is years in the making. But I have been telling this story the entire time. I don't know. How did I do it? I did it all with ChatGPT and looking over the IRC code and looking over the IRS rules and just putting it in here if I didn't understand it and asking questions and questions. Literally, these questions I asked thus far are, with my knowledge, are pretty much useless in heading in the best direction possible. Like when I think of corporate structure and tax-friendly handling of income, I think of real estate because that's, how many times have you seen on a social media post where someone's like, yeah, I've already offset all my taxes for this year, so I bought myself a fancy car. And that's because the rules regarding real estate are pretty gross, which is why the real estate situation in the United States is pretty gross. Because you can pretty much get deductions on anything. It's just disgusting. Uh, um, and frankly, it's complicated. So my entire life has been in pursuit of simplification. I want to alleviate anxiety or anxiety that's a result of excessive responsibility. And that's why these damn crypto assets have simplified the crap out of everything. What's the responsibility? Due diligence, making sure they're actually good investments, and then they pay. So then after they pay, how do you manage the cash? Well, I can't really break this whole thing down in just a couple of sentences. There's a flow to it. In fact, it's quite poetic in many regards. Uh, you know, here's a good one. Let me share the core of where it all starts, or because it all starts at the federal level. The states play a big role. It's a federalism where you have the United States of America, the federal government, but the states have a tremendous amount of power. And they have such power that the federal government crafts rules around state power. They can't just they literally in part of fundamental rules of this nation cannot bypass or override states for certain things. And to such a degree, back in 2004, this document was written. This is an IRS rule 0331614. It's a rule, just like we're reading rules here about corporate taxation. And yeah, if you've never looked into optimizing capital management, um, you're dealing with personal taxation, which pretty much anything you make, you just get a chunk of it ripped away from you. And then corporate, there's rules like what deductions there are. I mean, with personal taxation, you get the standard deduction, and then you can itemize. But unless you have over, I was like 22 grand for a family, you might as well take the standard deduction. So the point is, you're never going to itemize out your entire salary. But with like corporate tax rules, you pretty much do that with real estate, and that's where all those social media posts come from. Well, the problem is it's complicated with S corps and LLCs. It's a lot of reporting and just annoying rules. So inherent in the structure of the United States is the right to privately contract, which is basically this. Here, look, this is a contract. I wrote on a piece of paper, I get it notarized, and it's a contract. It's a rule. This is the law. This is like software. I write the software and then I get it notarized, which is like compiling the software, and then the judge in a courtroom is like the processor who processes the compiled software. It's a remarkable analogy and how accurate that is. So this rule says a lot. Pardon me. One, I was on an airplane, so I'm all messed up in the head, and I'm trying my best to tell somewhat of a cohesive story. I'll get to all your comments. I promise. Always do. So, definition of income for trust purposes. That's a hell of a rule. It seems like this is important, or it seems like this is meaningful. You know, it took me a long time to find this. It's like they bury it or something. So let's do something for fun. Definition of income for trust purposes. Find me an IRS rule regarding the definition of income for a trust. Let's see how easy it is to find this rule. Nope. Okay, this is actually an interesting response, and I'm going to stop right here. It went to IRC code, Internal Revenue Code, which is basically the byproduct of the rules. It's the derivative of the rules. And these aren't even like the full rules. This is just, there's a lot of, like, here's the rules. I'll show you guys this. See if I can find it. Oh no, I don't have my Finder up. I got a folder full of the rules. These rules, like the real rules, like the statute, the shit that comes out of Congress, they're like tens of thousands of pages long. It's pretty disgusting. But with the magic of ChatGPT, you can read the rules. Anyway, so IRC 61 is gross definition of income. What is it? 61. I see I do a whole analysis here. Section 13. Is it 61, 61? 63 is gross definition of taxable income, and 641 is taxable income for trust. This 61, 643 is important as well. In fact, this document is related to IRC 643. So, no, that's not what I want. That's not the definition of income. That's the code. You got to go deeper than that. So what gives the code its definition? So let's see. Let's do good old Google. Goodness gracious, that's useless. See, I've read all these documents. No, I don't. Not an IRS code. God damn it! Look at the sons of bitches how you can't find this shit. No, no, because this is misleading. It's income from whatever source derived. The IRC 61. See, I do all this shit. Watch, I go to Cornell. So notice they're all purple because I've read these things like 10 billion times. So the rules are misleading. The code is misleading without reading the rules. Because the code is separate code pieces. I mean, this whole stream is literally turning into, well, it's turning into what it really needs to be. It's a capital management framework. I mean, if you're going to make income, you might as well optimize the crap out of it. Bear in mind, everything I say, you're always still paying personal income taxes. Always. So all of this is how to manage capital not owned by a person. So if you're ever wanting to like buy food or go on a trip, buy clothing, pay tax on that shit. But there's a reason like a Roth IRA and you're making income in a Roth IRA, you're making income in an IRA, you're not paying tax on that. It's like an accumulation vessel, an encapsulated separate entity unto itself. Where do you think those structures get their rules from? In good part, this type of stuff. Well, not IRC code, but stuff like this. It's a heck of a rule. There's a particular series of clauses in here, but we could skip to an example at the end, example 12. And, it's interlaced in here. One of the most important parts for my interest. But it's this state statute. Equitable adjustments under state statute. That's everything. Yeah, let's do this for the fun of it. We're on a ChatGPT while streaming binge today. We're just going to type that in. What the hell does that mean? Let's see what this says. I know what it says. I'm saying if you want to see what it says, we could see what it says. Equitable adjustments refer to adjustments made by fiduciaries. Great. So trustees, trust. These adjustments are often governed by states. That's interesting. Federalism. So we have a federal IRS rule that says these adjustments are governed by states. Okay, great. There's the UPIA, which is formerly the UPIA. Now it's the UFIPA, and it's broadly the UTC. And a lot more states subscribe to the UTC compared to the UFIPA, but it's basically out there. You can pretty much reference it because it's meaningful and it has a fair amount of adoption. UTC is most states have rules, even if they're not completely subscribed to the UFIPA or the UTC, Universal Trust Code. A trust. Oh my God! Actually, that's pretty interesting right off the bat. Referencing UPIA Section 104. A trustee may adjust between principal and income to the extent that the trustee considers it necessary that if the trustee invests and manages assets as a prudent investor, the trust describes the amount that shall or may be distributed to beneficiaries referring to trust income. Yada, 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 yada. This adjustment ensures fairness amongst beneficiaries, particularly between income beneficiaries and remainder beneficiaries. All right, so basically, the Fed says the state, and the state says the UPIA, and the UPIA says there's authority for the trustee to adjust between principal and income. Principal and income. So here's an interesting one. Mutual exclusion. If it's principal, can it also be income? If it's income, is it not principal? If it's principal, it's not income, and if it's income, it's not principal. Mutual exclusion. It's one or the other. And here's basically an analysis of state statutes, Florida. And here's your rule. IRS 303316114. So let's go back to the rule. So we basically looked at a federal rule that says the state, and then the state says the UPIA, and we've determined there's authority to adjust between principal and income, where principal is not income and vice versa. So what does that mean for a structure maybe like an IRA, where income can accumulate? So we have an authority to adjust between principal and income. And what does that mean for like personal taxes? Nothing. This isn't a person. What does it mean for corporate taxes? This is nothing. This isn't a corporation. These are the rules for 1041. We file 1040s. These file 1041s. Simple as that. So here's your equitable adjustments as the example we looked at the bottom. Between income and principal, and describe the circumstance in which these adjustments currently are permitted under state law. Great. We just did that. The UPIA, UFIPA, UTC. A lot of different state codes, but the Florida is very interesting. Florida is pretty damn interesting because Florida don't give a fuck. Florida just comes out and says it. A trustee may allocate items of income or expense to trust income or principal as provided by law. I don't really understand the significance as provided by law because this is a law. Maybe it's like legal income, something like that. But what does that mean? If I could allocate items of income or expense to income or principal, so if I could allocate items of income to principal, it's not income, it's principal. So here's the rules. It's the rules. So that's you're literally reading a damn IRS rule. So here's the kicker. Describe the circumstance under which these adjustments are currently permitted under state law and will be respected for federal tax purposes. Oh shit. So it turns out if you are rational and you have a capacity to be reasonable and you have a capacity to adhere to strict prudent judgment and do good things and do right things and follow the rules, then income is an income. It's principal under particular ethical considerations. So what I learned a couple years ago was that you need some ethical boundaries. You can't just make $10 million and say it's principal. That doesn't really make much sense. So that'll be attacked. Who wants to be attacked? No one wants to be attacked. So set up some ethical boundaries, and you define these rules. You define them for yourself. So that's basically what I did in some of these sections. Ethical boundaries. Where was ethical? 21. 21 is ethical. Oh shit, fiduciary limitation. So I am strictly limiting myself to do a variety of different things. And it's very detailed, obviously. Anyway, so an interesting one is I cannot discretionarily defer tax liability using equitable adjustments outside the explicit account procedures defined in section 20.2.3 and 20.2.4. And then you got to go to those sections to see what they say, because I cannot behave outside of the procedures defined in those two sections. So, and basically by adhering to strict fiduciary restraints, ethical boundaries, basically not being an asshole about this and taking it responsibly, your choices are respected for federal tax purposes. So maybe I talk in terms of a bias with regard to income versus appreciation. That's because I understand the rules, and income isn't necessarily income, so I don't need my stocks to appreciate. It's not avoiding taxation. This is all taxed upon personal consumption. Same thing with an IRA. Well, when you withdraw from an IRA, you're paying tax. When you withdraw from a Roth IRA, you're not. You're untaxed. There's no tax when you withdraw money from a Roth IRA. You pay tax when you withdraw from a regular IRA. And guess what? From a Roth IRA, that you don't take money, that when you take your money out and there's no tax, when you buy some shit, guess who's paying sales tax? You're paying tax. You're always paying tax. There's always tax. Don't be afraid of tax. Understand it. Understand the rules. Don't be afraid of the rules. Here's an interesting one. I got to share the whole screen. Hey, you guys got a bunch of pretty short on the comments. I'll share this one with you. Entire screen. We'll go over here. Let me see if I can find it real quick. Where do I have it? Where do I have it? Have it. Notes. Yeah. Yeah, there it is. I got it. Yeah, it's a PDF, so it'll take a second. Let me find it. Bear with me. This is a cute one. Check this out. I'll read this to you. Because even the most patriotic citizens do not have a duty to increase their taxes. This is a lovely case right here. Read the case. Read the judge's ruling. It is entirely legal and legitimate to minimize taxes through permissible means. Read the case, because it's a very interesting case in 1998. But if a transaction or entity has no valid, no tax business purpose, nominally uses another person or entity, conduct pass conduit through which to pass title. And so this is the big one right here. No real change of economic relation. Economic substance doctrine. So if you basically, you could reduce your tax liabilities by structuring according to rules, but if you don't have economic substance, they could collapse your entity, collapse your structure. And then it's just basically what's defined as a grantor trust versus a non-grantor trust. But these are very interesting cases right here, because it talks about, you could do all this. You could Google this. You could use AI to understand the rules. That's the whole point I'm trying to make. So we started the stream with folks being critical of dividends because you have to pay income tax because you're screwed on personal income taxes. And they're like, oh, so you could jump on the ship with every other fucktwit out there buying an NVIDIA share at a ridiculous price because they have buybacks and you don't get taxed on buy. It's the stupidest reason to invest in these overpriced investments when you could do so much more. Anyway, gave you guys a little bit of taste of the business. Don't forget to define economic purpose, because as we just said, if you lack sufficient economic substance, your entity gets collapsed. So define the purpose. So here's the kicker. Economic purpose. Material change of hands. You cannot just create a pass-through like, it's me just putting it there, but it's still me. And that's where Section 16 comes in. Investment rules and nature of assets. Oh, shit. This may sound familiar. Overarching theme. The fiduciary is instructed to treat investments as a non-refundable purchase of cash flow. That's hot. Isn't that sexy? That's sexy language right there. Corpus focuses on specific cryptocurrency smart contracts that produce cash flow and have immutable lock functionality. Sexy. This is some sexy stuff. But the whole damn thing is sexy. It's literally top to bottom sexy. The locked asset. So if you have accounts or titles, you can't prove shit, meaning it's all ambiguous. And that is open to attack, meaning I could retitle anything into an entity's name. It's on paper. But a locked cryptocurrency asset, I could prove that I could never or no longer access that amount of capital. If I take $500,000 and you buy the E-curve, I could prove unquestionably in a court of law that I could not access that $500,000. You could prove it. That is economic substance. That is economic substance that has never existed prior to 2020. Everything else is how do you prove it? But that I could prove unquestionably. It is impossible to access that principle. And maybe you create another rule like every month you have to relock it. So it's basically like a perpetuity. So there's rules against perpetuities as well. So I'm gonna relock it in perpetuity to create economic substance. Oh, great. So what are the rules on perpetuities? That's an interesting one. Where's the perpetuity section? I have it. I have it here. Here. So, interestingly enough, the rules on perpetuities are that if your trust was created after July 1st, 2022, you have a 1,000-year limit. I mean, you can't make this shit up when you actually read the rules. It's literally Florida 689-225-2G. And then 2F, which is what I fall into, December 31st, 2000. 300, the horror. 360 years. Oh, it's unbearable. So you could this decanting, and you could just roll it over into a new trust and post 2022 for 1,000-year lifespan. Florida is really weird. Florida is really weird because they understand that it's all getting paid. Look, Florida has no state income tax. Yet all the roads are ridiculously awesome. All the highways, it's all flyovers. There's always construction. It's all managed in a very different way as compared to like income tax. So they understand a very different business model. Did you know that like it's all corporations, like local towns, like the incorporated village? It's all villages and towns. They're just literally corporations. It's kind of weird when you understand and look into that shit. Anyway, I'll leave what I'll leave up. I'll go through your questions and happy to talk about that stuff. I'm at the point where it's like, all right, fine, I understand literally everything about it, and I could just talk about it. It's all publicly available information, all of it. Like literally, here's my appendix. It's all public. And here's your rules. You need all of these rules to build a structure like this. And you have to reference the rules. Holistic statutory respect. I get a little repetitive in the document, but I don't mind it because that's kind of an important point to hammer home that I understand the rules and I'm literally built it according to the rules, and I am going to absolutely be compliant with the rules for a couple of very specific reasons that I literally define. Impact of the trust on the parents of the beneficiary. This took all my capital. All of it is gone. I can't access it outside the scope of the rules. So material change of relationship, independence, economic interest, very interesting stuff. So let's pop up Bitcoin, and we'll talk. Answer some of your questions. If you're on YouTube, throw some questions up. If you're on X, throw some questions up. Say what's up. DCA man, high cap, rational people, arrows in the house, tapsy, buybacks. Yeah, we've talked about that. You know the deal. Maybe that works in TradFi, I don't know, but hasn't worked in crypto as far as I can tell. It hasn't worked in crypto. Merlin candles. That was the ultimate buyback. Why? Because it gets dumped on. Buyback doesn't work in traditional. You know what works? 401k passive flows. It's basically like a giant twap. It is the 401k passive flows are the largest twap in the universe. That's actually kind of funny when you say that sentence 10 times fast. Just literally twapping in. Boom, boom, boom. That's all it does. Yeah, obviously buybacks work in a world where billions of dollars are twapped into the market by folks that just dump their paychecks into the hot shit the bankers want them to, into the boomer retirement plan. Assume good morning, Sergio, present, Raul, hello. Connect the dots. Puerto Rico, you mentioned. Adam, hey, hey. Connect the dots. Not that complex, sir. Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's always the case. Listen, life's about questions. Just don't stop asking questions. You can understand whatever you want to understand. You have to want to understand it first. Once you find something you want to understand, you ask questions to understand it. And now you can do that. You know, look, for folks on Discord that have access to some of our conversations, like we discussed trusts, throw it in. Throw it into ChatGPT. How do you think I built it? You throw it, and like it's literally devil's advocate. It's like processing this year's 1041. Here's the input. Review the document for the rules. Produce the output. Produce the 1041. And you have to make sure the rules can teach either an accountant or an AI how to process your tax returns. So it's a rule book. That's the whole point of documentation. So that's how you make the best rules possible. Now, this has taken a long time, honestly. It's taken years. But anyone could do it. I mean, yes, I understand I have a title and they call me the Captain Rational. Anyone could be whatever they want to be. And just takes questions. And someone who cannot rest without answering many questions. Hope that helps. Can you share the rules to read them fully? I share them privately. It's not public. Why? Because I don't know. I can't give away everything. I spent years on this stuff, my man. But bear in mind, this is not. This is just the highest level rules. You need some low level rules too. So you need some legal boilerplate. So you need a base layer trust document, which you could probably get from ChatGPT nowadays. Let's see what we can do. Create a base level trust document to define initial capitalization, roles including protector, reactor. It gets really annoying because it's all boilerplate documentation. copy and paste from client to client, so the attorneys make a huge amount of fees on this shit. And it should be like, literally just buying like a turnkey solution. So all it is notarized pages saying this person is this person is that. It's literally copy paste. My document is tailored to me. That would be expensive, but you know, boilerplate. You could probably even get it better from. You got to understand the base level trust doc too. So you got to throw that stuff and really ask the questions about it too. So let's start here. Create a initial capitalization, roles including trustee, protector, grantor, and beneficiaries. Structure it so the grantor relinquishes all rights to create a non-grantor. That's interesting. Well, let's see what it does. Interesting. Huh. That's actually really simple. I mean, clearly, like in law, you got to go through all the granularity. So it's like, you can't say all this. Be as robust as possible. Legal, be legally exhaustive. Break down everything the grantor must. And let's see what it does. That's interesting. Let's see. There you go. Oh, ChatGPT power. Look at that. That's pretty good. Let's see. Rights of control, trust specifically the grantor right to revoke or amend the trust, right of control. Well, this is actually really good. Administrative powers. Wow, that's interesting. Okay, I think give me a week or two. Probably put together some decent boilerplate documentation, literally just using ChatGPT. And this would probably be like a 20 chip from an attorney, give or take. But you need your templates. It's like create templates for um, initial trustee, protector, and beneficiaries. Templates for initial assignment. With notarization fields. That's pretty good. Oh my goodness. Do you understand? Do you understand what that's worth? Like right there. Like this is so here's your I mean you got to put it together. So you got to get into like a doc and you got to organize things and actually make things sure things look legally presentable. Um, but this is interesting. This is interesting. There you go. I mean, literally, that's all it is. Like, I hereby take this role, notarize. I hereby give this, assign, the protector assigns the role of the beneficiaries. The protector assigns the role of the trustee. There's a big responsibility there. So, this documentation is simple as that. And you can make it more robust because then it's like, tell it, make make the templates more robust. Seriously, you can literally ask it to do that. Anywho, I understand you want to see the rules, Arcane. Can't share all the secrets, Hoss. We do have our Discord channel, in which we've talked about it for quite some time at this point, my friend. I haven't paid any taxes in a year, been traveling nonstop, and I'm not registered, have no permanent residence anywhere. I'm wondering when the government will come for me and want a piece of the cake. Well, they may never. John McAfee sure as hell did. Frankly, a lot of hot air goes on about this type of reality. In the end, interesting questions and interesting conversations. The number one thing I've learned as I've gotten older, don't fear questions. Don't fear conversation. It's okay to talk about things, especially when, you know, other people are interested. It's meaningful. So probably want to take care of that shit. Cover your bases. Everything in life is risk versus reward. And as I've gotten older, I want to minimize all risks possible. Because I just want to be old, sitting back on a lounge chair in the backyard and not have anything to worry about. Not so easy. DA Advisors in the house. Hello. Adam, my friend. Adam is a Discord member. If you didn't live in the U.S. but instead lived somewhere else with less than favorable trust laws, what would you do? I'm telling you, dig. Dig. I don't. I Every country on this planet has rules that are. You dig far enough, there's something interesting. There's something favorable. And what does favorable mean? Favorable ultimately means fair. I have plenty of taxes to pay if I want to go out to dinner, or if I want to buy clothes, or if I want to buy a personal car. I have to pay taxes. It's fair. So my structure optimizes the fairness according to the rules. When I get a receipt from Curve on Thursdays, no tax on that. It's principal. It's taxed when I take it as a salary, in which case I have to file a 1040, or it's taxed if there's a distribution to a beneficiary, one of my children, in which case I have to file K1? K1, and they got to file a 1040, and I get, there's a deduction for K1 D&I calculations on 1041s. So, but the trust is another level. So when is the trust tax is an interesting conversation, and that's discussed in the rules as well. Turns out it's you get to define. It's kind of weird. You literally get to define when the trust is taxed. Really weird rules, especially with Florida. This is a very interesting state. So Adam, dig. There's a lot of wealthy people across the pond, and I'm sure they use fair rules at some level. Vibs, how do you begin to think about productive assets? Should I find a protocol that's profitable and figure out how to become a part of the profit share? I enjoyed owning Xgrail, Camelot. Yes. So here's the thing. Finding. There's not many. And when all is said and done, was there a dozen or 2 dozen what I would define as investable protocols in the entire crypto space? I mean, you're talking about ancient conversations that we've had. Number one, the most important being immutability. Everyone hates Curve. Everyone. Price has been destroyed. It's one of the most significant protocols in the crypto space. And the equation is very simple. You get it as cheap as possible. It's immutable. It will continue to exist in 4, 8, 12, 16 years. The code cannot change. Immutability is a significant part of my rules. Section 16. Uh, Particularly with regard to accounting as well. Immutability. Immutability. Once deployed, smart contracts are immutable and cannot be changed or tampered with. Investments are carefully evaluated to ensure these properties exist. When immutability in contract code exists, prudent investment decisions are made to manage risk. Prudent investment decisions are predominantly position size. So, if something's immutable, you have a different risk consideration as compared to something that is mutable. I think that that is meaningful. So, that's how I proceed. So, it's a lot of chicken and the egg because you need investments to produce cash flow, and the cash flow you can invest. And you kind of want the collateral too. That's another story. But how do you find these protocols? Social media, certainly social media. History, I mean, this has been years. So, I appreciate folks now getting into crypto, better late than never. But this has been going on for years. And now the truth is the vast majority of the population does live under the rock. And they don't see what's going on. They have no idea what the hell just happened over the last 4 years. But the world changed. The world changed because of the capacity to prove that I no longer have access to the principal. And that is, according to Section 18, uh, unambiguous compliance with economic substance, which is what we were looking at over here. If there's no valid business purpose, so there's valid business purpose, encapsulation of capital, taking care of kids, which is another conversation about HEMS expenses. But economic substance, it's purpose, there's a reason. Um, so that changed everything. These rules are at the root of a lot of financial activity. The general public doesn't really read these rules. Like, we couldn't even find it from Google. So this is obviously an important rule that a lot of people use. So it governs a lot of behavior. So if I found these rules and I see that these crypto markets and these immutable contracts and lock protocols, am I going to be the last person to find these rules and understand this? I think it's pretty damn interesting. So how do you find them? Social media, conversation, find them mutable, find locks, permanent locks, if possible. Perpetuity, if you're doing perpetuities, you got to look into your respective state rules, or at minimum look at the common law. So common law is, it needs to be unlockable at some point. But perpetuities vary from state to state. Anywho, um, part of profit share, it's also conceptual. And you're going to have very different considerations for L2s versus mainnet. L2s, what? You might have to have a time horizon 4, 8, 12 years out. Like most of what I think about on Arbitrum is like check back in 4 years, like 28, 29 type time horizon. There's only a couple of $1 billion there. Let's take a look at that. What time is it? 12:35. We haven't looked at the llama in quite some time. Man, I was on an airplane 2 days ago, and it's just like an elephant in my head for the last 2 days. Let's take a look at tables, because that's your inspection of chains. Let's see where we're at. So we're at $80 billion on mainnet, which is zero in the global grand scheme of things. It's $4 billion. It's big compared to like mom and pop pizza shop. Check back when this is at a half a trill. 28, 32. So that's why I can't really, I never deployed. So heading into like 2024, 23, 22, it's all mainnet. And I couldn't justify larger deployments on L2s. And then as you know, we got capital and there was a lot of receipts, income over the last 2, 3 years. Smaller positions I took on the alt chains. V33s. Tapioca is launched on Arbitrum. It's not on Arbitrum. It's everywhere. So that's a big position nowadays. And Curve. Curve is everywhere as well. It's predominantly mainnet. Everything was. Back in 2020, there was none of it. It was all mainnet. That's all there was in 2020. There was no Arbitrum. There was no Solana. There was no uh, 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 there was no Superchain. There was no Optimism. There was no nothing. Y'all got it good nowadays. Did you know the first alt Ethereum was Binance Smart Chain, which went absolutely nasty in 2020? It was nasty. That was gross. Jesus. Sushi Swap's initial vampire attack of Uniswap. Ah, y'all don't remember 2020. That was weird back then. Anywho, mainnet. I like mainnet. I like the most hated protocol in the universe, Curve Finance. Hope that helps, my friends. It's not easy. And in the end, I have no idea what the hell is going to play out. My portfolio is down. You guys knew the total net worth loss. But that's not the point. The point of capital management isn't your total net worth. The point of capital management is how much you get paid on Friday. Your net worth will be all over the place. But you can only bank on how much money you have on Friday to pay your bills and to go on a vacation or to go out to dinner. You don't need a lump of shit sitting in a bank account. I don't know. That's crazy. That's unproductive capital. So, wealthy people don't have lumps of cash sitting around. They got lumps, but tiny things, tiny lumps. Liquid. Nobody keeps it liquid. Happy Wednesday, Cap Brian Morris. Arcane, thanks, Cap. You're doing something very important, sharing these knowledges. I hope. It's been a long journey. Can you imagine me talking about this shit back in 2020? Very different conversation back in 2020. Are V33 protocols immutable? Hell no. No, they're not. No, they've got proxy contracts all over the place. So, just because they're immutable doesn't, you just gotta size the position right. I have ceased investing in V33 protocols. In hindsight, I think early Velodrome and early Ramses would have been all that's needed. And I would have saved a boatload of capital on the rest. And that would have made much better sense. But that's hindsight. Hindsight is 2020. And because early Velodrome, you would have Aerodrome, and early Velodrome, you have all the expansion of Velodrome. And early Ramses, would have gotten all the drops for everything. So that would have made the most sense. In the end, Nile's quite productive. Ramses is effectively productive. I'm not disappointed in them. Their principle is evaporating into nothingness, but Section 16, fair market value. Locked assets are assigned the $0 fair market value to express proper substance over form for the accounting books to accurately reflect available capital. They are locked. They are worthless. They cannot be sold even if I wanted to sell them. They are provably, deterministically locked. So, well, that's a good point. You could sell a VE NFT, VE33. Okay. You're going to take a freaking massive loss. Okay, so that's it's actually in the context of my business structure, that's not optimal. Um, I don't think you could write that down to zero. No. Problem is, how do you value it? Because of a VE33 NFT, it's not fair. There's no fair. It's fair market. It's like an auction. It's like selling a used car. You're going to be selling it at a discount. Um, you had to pain in the neck to put a value on it for accounting purposes. In hindsight. Um, Anyhow, hope that helps. That probably confuses you guys just as much as it's making me think right now. To get Claude to actually answer with depth, I often have to add something like, imagine you are an expert in trust. Yeah, swap to ChatGPT. Um, I don't know. But I've had a great experience with ChatGPT. Not so much Claude with regard to legal analysis. And there's a couple of different, like this trust advisor is pretty good. It's literally a customized, what do they call it? They call it GPTs for trusts. But here, check this out. I thought there was one in the UK. UK. Oh, search here. Look, Adam, Trust and Equity Law Advisor in the UK. UK Trust and Estate Planning. Write your own wills and trusts in the UK. My man! In hindsight, you'd be like, oh shit, that's pretty cool. Hope that helps. ChatGPT. Well, the Arcane, they are unlockable. Yeah, I nailed that one. That's correct. Okay, whoa, got to the end of the questions. All right, so today was a very fuzzy, foggy day for me in my head, and we started with buybacks versus dividends, the age-old question, and I went on my historic rant of why I'm not fond of buybacks, and then I digressed forever into business structure, how to manage dividends and encapsulate capital and whatnot. That's probably the more interesting conversation. I said most recently that capital management, like the business structure, is just as important, if not more important, than what the hell you're investing in. You can make a mess out of things running all this stuff through personal books. The last year I ran things through personal books was 2021. 22, 23, and now 24 are going to be all my new structure. So bear in mind, your new structure is as good as your current understanding of it is, which means my initial soiree into not owning things is controlled by my current understanding of how to not own things. Excuse me. So it gets better over time, and it gets stronger over time. So as you document it, that document, you notarize it, and it's powerful. The written word is mightier than the sword, they say. Or something like that. All right. Bitcoin looks good. I'm not going to go into technicals. I got to get back to work. But 57.8, that's lovely. 31.1. Oh, Diego, I think you really get the difference between income and principal. Here's the difference between income and principal. Principal is not income, and income is not principal. And income can be allocated to principal. All right, so you hit a claim button and you get income, and you're like, all right, I allocate it to principal. Okay, it's not income. It's just discretion, trustee discretion. Now you have that's it. It's not income. There's no income tax. It's not income. But years ago, where someone initially hearing that, they're like, what? A lot. It takes 24 pages takes 24 pages to describe why and how that works. It's not income, it's principal. Because I have to comply with rules. Rules that the Fed created, well, the IRS, the federal agencies, and the state created, and then the top of the law rules that I created, 20.2 and 20.3. I must do that. I must equitably adjust income to principal as required to achieve sections 20.11, 20.12, so on and so forth, using conclusive authority in section 13.6. I have to comply with my rules. So I am required to turn income into principal, which has an associated tax implication. It's just, in hindsight, it's really simple. And it's really kind of stark. Like if I was telling myself in 2021 that these were the rules, I wouldn't understand it. It takes years to really, I guess, digest it. Meaning it took years for me to get to this point where it's like, oh, that's why. So it's like if you're doing that, if you could and that's right here. So this is IRS Rule 0331614. So if you could equitably adjust between income and principal, you have to describe the circumstances in which these adjustments are permitted under state law. And if they're permitted under state law, this is interesting language here. Under which these adjustments currently are permitted under state law. So you refer to a power, and you could describe. So you have to describe the circumstances under which they're permitted under state law and will be respected for federal tax purposes. Now, fortunately, I do that in my compliance document. I have another one of those. It's called the Equitable Adjustments Quarterly Report. So I figured I'd describe the circumstance in which it was allowed. So it's just kind of as simple as that. Kind of weird, kind of simple. Here, I'll give you this one. Let's put this in the chat. I mean, that's the rules. It's literally reading the rules. It's right there. Nothing magical or mysterious about it. A little hard to find. I guess you can't find it from a Google search, but it's a big one because this is IRC 643. Here's a big one here. I'll give you this one. Not 61. 61 and 63 are kind of important, but they're too broad. They're very broad. There's a lot more rules that go involved with it, but it's like IRC 641. Here's a good section for you guys to have. Subpart A. Here, general rules of taxation in estates and trusts. Here's some good stuff. Here's your rules. It's the rules. I mean, you start from here, and you got to start somewhere. Plug all that shit into ChatGPT and start digesting it a little bit. I didn't really get the difference between income and principal, Diego. I think we nailed that. Are the people participating in DeFi money transfers? Who knows? Not yet, not currently. In which country? FinCEN is what country? So which country is DeFi in? All right, great. So if I'm in Germany, you move it offshore. All this bullshit. It's too much bullshit. It's too much bullshit. People are overwhelmed. Keep it simple. Manage your accounting, manage your books, find some simple investments, and that's the most important thing to focus on. Adam, awesome. Cheers. I'll make the switch. Yes, indeed. Okay, my guy. Okay, everybody, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for joining me on a Wednesday, July 10th at 12:50 p.m. 237 people made it to the end of the stream. I thank each and every one of you. Tell everybody to subscribe. Jump on Discord. We talk about a lot of this stuff. We talk about a lot of these codes and rules and regulations and how you can do just a little bit better by following the rules. Enjoy your day. I'll see you later this week. Peace.